These TikTok travelers are too rich to follow, apparently. So let's see. Let's check this out.
Here's what it's like to travel private instead of first. One of the best things is you only need to arrive about 15 to 30 minutes before your departure time. You'll have a private lounge all to yourselves with
This
complimentary
looks
snacks and
sick.
beverages.
That looks
We
awesome.
didn't have to worry about the weight of our bags or taking out electronics and liquids. Instead, we relaxed until it was time to head to the plane. Usually the private lounges are very close to the aircraft, however, if you don't fancy the walk, you can always get the car. The pilot and cabin crew will welcome you on board. For this flight, we had two pilots and one air hostess. Okay, let's take a look inside. This is one of the smaller jets. As you can see, it sits 6 people, but for a 3-hour flight, it was perfect. The food and non-alcoholic drinks were complimentary. We pre-ordered and we also celebrated a birthday. Alcohol, as well as any other extras, can be brought on board, as well as Bluetooth speakers for music. Some jets don't have Wi-Fi, not even as an added cost. Luckily, we managed to still get some work done. One more thing to note is for those that get easily car sick, the seating arrangement could be an issue, especially if you're facing the rear of the aircraft. 3 hours later, we're starting to descend into our next destination. Let me know in the comments where you think we've landed. And here's a clue, it's a 3-hour flight from the UK. So once we land, we still have to go through immigration checks and x-ray machines, but there's no queue, we have the whole lounge to ourselves. Our cars were waiting right outside the lounge, so we didn't have to walk very far at all. And overall, it took about 15 minutes from the time that we landed to be on our merry way, making it a very quick and smooth process. So which would you pick, first class or private?
Now here's the thing, right? Between like first class and private. Another way to really look at it is like, one, how often are you even flying on planes to begin with, right? Because like if you fly on planes all the time, it makes way more sense to go coach to save a lot of money just because of the sheer number of flights that you're doing, right? Private, yeah, you could do that as well. Well, I mean, like, I guess, first class. Let's put first class, right? First class is really for like people who do travel a lot, but make enough money to where that added cost of first class isn't like a deal breaker. Like, where it's not really going to affect their lifestyle in a sense, right? Because if you end up spending money for like a first class ticket, but you end up not being able to buy groceries, yeah, you really shouldn't be doing that. Now the thing is, people who are able to afford private jet, the way that they're doing it in this TikTok, have to be making a lot of money. But flying on private in general won't actually be as expensive that people think. So, for example, I saw someone actually break this down, but if you have like private jet time that you rent out, because that's typically how most people do it, you don't actually necessarily rent out the jet or buy the jet, you actually rent out the time on these jet flights, right? So basically, I'm just going to use like this example. Say that in Florida, you wanted to fly from like Tampa to Orlando or like Tampa to like Miami or something like that and back, right? It might be like 30 minutes of airtime one way and 30 minutes of airtime back, right? So that's like an hour of airtime that you need to rent out, which might cost maybe like 2 grand or something like that for like that hour of flight time, right? So it's not actually as expensive as a lot of people might think. Now, if you're going like overseas or something in a private jet, that is going to be beyond expensive. If you're flying over multiple states, that is going to be super expensive, right? But if we're talking like you're going from like a city to city in the same state on a private jet, it's actually not that expensive. If you're making like 6 figures a year, you could probably actually easily afford it without hurting yourself financially. But it's just something that you really got to understand. Like, for the most part, first class makes no sense really for anyone. Like, pretty much it's like, should you fly coach or should you fly private jet? Because first class, you're kind of spending a lot of money for not that much difference between coach, and you're still basically going to have to suffer in the same plane. So it doesn't really make that much sense to pay for first class versus coach. And you should really go from like coach to private jet, because the private jet thing could be more of like a special situation and won't really destroy your bank either, depending on how you do it, just because of the nature of flying private jet. So this apparently well-off couple pissed a lot of people off. The Lux travel couple, who run a travel tip page on TikTok, went viral for their tone-deaf approach to flying on private jets. In a vlog they posted this week, which now has 1.2 million views, which, funny enough, if they posted this on YouTube or something, they could easily have made like 7 to 14 grand plus on a single video if they had the same amount of views. So the female passenger states, "Here's what it's like to travel private instead of first." She goes on to film the amenities such as a private lounge access, complimentary snacks, and escort and car services that passengers are pampered with when they fly on private jets. The wealthy duo, who are traveling to Morocco from the UK, sparked backlash from fellow TikTok users. "Can't afford either of these, but thanks for the visual that I will never see in person. Good for hoping and wishing," one commented. "Thanks for reminding us how poor we are," another quipped. "Complimentary? You mean included in the cost?" someone else added. So one person says, "So how much does this cost?" And this person says, "So how much does this cost?" Including the return flight and divided by 6 people. Including the return flight and divided by 6 people. Yeah. Their page's profile description boasts just a couple of their travels and documents lavish excursions to places like Dubai and Maldives, where they relax in pricey spas and villas. Now here's another thing too, because probably they are getting good amount of views on their videos and whatnot. Some of these planes, some of these places are potentially giving these services to them for free, as like free promotion, because they know that they would end up actually making more money long term by having people promote this to millions of people, potentially. So let's see if there's any comments on this one. Okay, there is. "Only desperate people would follow them. Looks cheap. Most people can't afford gas and food right now. It is not as glamorous as it looks. No headroom, no legroom. I was graciously invited on a trip in this exact aircraft. Not worth it. The grass is not always greener. It may be glamorous, but too claustrophobic for me." Interesting. Oh, whoa. A lot of people do not like this article. That's pretty interesting. But no, I don't think there's really anything wrong with it. It's just like, people don't really actually understand how much some of these things actually cost. Like, again, if you're making like 6 figures a year, you could both do private and first class. You just shouldn't, right? But you could afford it, you just shouldn't. So it's just something to think about. People are able to do this sort of thing without making millions and millions of dollars. If you want to learn how to get out of debt and master your money, go to 40inbox.com.